Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to answer 25 of your questions regarding studying in the US. You've asked me them on Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram yet, it's Lingua Marina. Please make sure to follow me because I post stories in English daily about life here in the US, about business and studying. So make sure to follow me and let's move on to those 25 questions. Question number one, general advice for everyone who's seeking education in the United States. My general advice, just be ready to work hard. It takes time to get admitted here because you have to make sure you have all your recommendation letters, personal statements, exams ready. Your English should be good enough. Second, you need to make sure you have money to pay for your education, or if you're applying for financial aid, it's even a longer process and it requires a lot of, again, research, like what university gives financial aid. I'm going to talk about that a little later. It's just a lot of work, so make sure you have enough time. Don't be like, oh, I want to study in the US starting next month. That might happen if you're applying for a language course, but if you're applying for like a bachelor's and master's, it's gonna take a while, okay? Question number two, I'm just gonna explain how educational system in the US works. So if you're an international student coming without your parents, you're gonna pay around $25,000 a year, and that's tuition, accommodation, and your food, so everything is included. It starts at $25,000 a year. If you are here already, if one of your parents is a resident, then there is a free school. That's a completely different topic, and I'm mostly talking about international students here. If you want to do your bachelor's, what you need is your high school education from your country. There is no like foundation program or whatever. You might have heard about that in the UK. America is very democratic and accepts your high school diploma from your country, so no worries about that. Bachelor's program lasts for 4 years. I would say apply during the last year of your school education, but again, there is no age limit. You can also finish your school, spend some time working, and then apply for your bachelor's. Master's program lasts from 1 to 2 years. You would need a bachelor's diploma from your country to apply. Again, you can apply later in your life. I think I applied, what was it, 2014. I applied 2 years after graduation from my bachelor's program in Russia. You can also do your MBA. MBA is the same as master's, but it's mostly a program for managers. And there's also PhD. PhD is a program where there's 99% chance you're gonna get some financial aid. It's really good in terms of financing, but it's a full-time program. It's 4 years, and you spend those 4 years doing your research. It's everyday hard work, and in order to get accepted, you need to prove that you have some significant experience in research. Number three, exams that you need to take. This is a very interesting part. So first of all, there's this examination called TOEFL, and TOEFL is something that you have to take. It doesn't matter which program you're applying to. TOEFL is an examination that checks your level of English. They have 4 parts: speaking, reading, listening, writing, and you absolutely have to take it. And my advice is start preparing for it as early as possible. And by the way, we just released a completely new intensive course where you can prepare for TOEFL online. The link will be below. The thing is, there are a lot of changes this year to TOEFL examination, and we prepared this brand new course to make sure we cover all of those changes. And in this course, you're going to be able to find all the templates that you need to pass TOEFL. We're going to explain how people actually check your TOEFL exercises, how they look at you. And we created this course because it took me a while to figure out what are the best resources to prepare for this exam, and we just grabbed like all the best resources, created this course together with other teachers who have scored 118 on TOEFL out of 120. I scored 117 out of 120. So you're gonna get all the templates, you're gonna get all the explanation for all 4 parts, you're gonna get exercises that you can work on. Make sure to hit a link below to enroll in this course. It's gonna be really useful, and I think this is the only resource that you need to prepare for TOEFL. Yes, of course you need your English, but then you don't need any extra books to get ready for this exam. And again, you need it for any program in the US. The link is below. There are some other exams that you need. If you're applying for a bachelor's program, if it's a competitive program, like if it's not a competitive program, TOEFL would be enough. If it's a very competitive program, you would also need to pass SAT subjects. For master's programs, there is a GRE exam, which is mostly for scientific/humanitarian subjects, and there's GMAT for economics, the same for a PhD. But again, if it's not a competitive university, one TOEFL exam would be enough. Question number 4, how to apply to an American university. It's actually very easy. You go to the university's website and hit apply, and everything is online. You just attach scanned documents, recommendation letters, personal statement, like everything is online, and then you hear from them. Also online, you're gonna receive like an email. Some universities would ask you to come on campus for an interview, but that's only top universities like MIT, Harvard. The rest would either have interview via Skype or not have it at all. Question number 5, what is Americans' relationship to foreigners? A lot of universities are very international, so don't be scared. Especially if we're talking about big cities, New York, like Los Angeles, San Francisco, there are so many immigrants here. So everything should be fine. Please don't worry about it. Just make sure your English is good enough so you can communicate with other people. But in general, people are very friendly. I've been in the US since 2015. I've never ever had a problem because I'm a Russian girl. You know, if you're smiling, if you are not socially awkward, if you're good at communicating with people, then you won't have any problems. So please don't worry about that. How often should I be in classes during my studies? In America, you have a chance to choose your own subjects, and you have a chance to choose how loaded you are during the semester. For example, you can take 10 classes or you can take 3 classes, and then it depends how much time you're going to spend studying. But also make sure you have enough time for rest, for self-work. Because in America, the program is structured in a way that, yes, you receive some tuition in class, but you also have to do a lot of homework, read books, work on your projects and stuff. So don't overload yourself, but be ready to spend 5 to 6 hours in classes per day, and then, you know, 2 or 3 hours in the library, making sure you have all your homework done. The next question, why I decided to go to America instead of Germany. So I studied in Germany when I was 20 years old, 9 years ago. And when I came there, like, I love Germany. Germany is one of my favorite countries, and I love going there, I love coming back there. But the thing is, the mentality is just not mine. Like, Europe is not my mentality in terms of what I want to be now. Maybe in 5 years this changes completely, but right now I want to be surrounded by people who are very successful, because I just see how I grow here in the US. And when you realize, like here in San Francisco, you're surrounded by people who are billionaires, and they started with like a small startup, and now this startup is Instagram, or they started with a small travel company and now this company is Airbnb, and you're like, maybe I have a chance as well. You know, people come here with nothing and they hustle and then they become really successful. This is something that I'm looking for myself. Whereas in Europe, everything is super relaxed, like nothing works on the weekends. Everyone has this work-life balance, you know, 5 p.m. I'm sorry, the office is closed, I can't help you. And yes, some people love it, and I can see why people love it. But right now, at this stage of my life, I just think that it's a little, too calm and too slow for me. But again, this is just my opinion. You really have to make this decision for yourself. Safety in the US. I know it's a huge concern, and mostly because there have been a lot of events recently with mass shootings and, with stuff like people getting into prison and illegal immigration. But the thing is, I've done my research. Like, I prefer to look at statistics, and if we look at stats like why people die in the US, like top reasons would be heart disease or like cardiac arrest and stuff, car accidents, like even in the world, these are top problems. The thing is, there are some problems that get a lot of media attention, and we start fearing them instead of fearing what really matters. Like, for example, if the plane crashes, we get it everywhere in the news, but your chance of dying in a plane crash is like super low, but your chance of dying of a heart attack is huge. And instead of like focusing on whether it's dangerous to fly, or whether it's dangerous to be in this and that place, Make sure you're not eating in McDonald's every day. Make sure you're not consuming too much sugar, because this is what actually messes up your system. Yes, things can happen, car accidents can happen, flights crash, etc. But if you just avoid those things and sit in the tent and continue eating sugar, there's like more probability that something's going to happen to you. So just focus on statistics. You can always research the safety of, the town you're going to. There's OpenStats, and research safety of your own city and compare. Again, I prefer to look at statistics. I prefer to even stop watching the news, because again, they're talking about events that are just, good for media. And this is not a good picture of what you should be afraid of in your life, because I would prefer if they talked about like bad influence of sugar and fast food on your body every day in the news, instead of like focusing on something that's just, really loud and huge event, etc. What should I study? Great question. So again, I think that you should only study things that you're interested in. And if I tell you like, hey, if you study IT or engineering, you're gonna have really good chance of getting a job, which is true. But if you hate it, you're gonna hate your life. And you were brought to this world not to hate your life. You were brought to this world to do something that you're passionate about. And if I tell you like become a YouTuber or something, like there are so many examples when people just do things that are not mainstream and they become successful. And so the main question that you should ask yourself, what I enjoy doing, and try to scale it a little. Like if you enjoy playing games, would you be happy to design a game by yourself? And this is like game design, and this is a great thing to do in your life. If you're interested in painting, would you be interested in becoming a graphic designer? And this is also a great profession. But in general, engineers, IT specialists are in very high demand, very easy to get a job, high paid job. How much is the tuition? Okay, so bachelor's, you can find programs that are as cheap as $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year. But I would say these are not the best programs, and I would say you'd rather go and study in your own country, in a better place, instead of coming to the US to get this not very good education. Good education costs $25,000, $30,000 a year. Some programs at Stanford would be even more expensive, $50,000 to $60,000 a year. But again, there is financial aid, and there are things you can do to offset education costs. Okay, let's talk about financial aid. In general, if you're a good student, I would tell you my case so you can compare, but they're also like, you don't have to be exactly like me. In my case, I was a straight A student at the university. I scored 700 out of 800 on GMAT, 117 out of 120 on TOEFL. I got some really good prizes from the American government, from German government. So I had this really nice portfolio, and I had my startup. But I also know students who have done 10 volunteering jobs and they got financial aid. I also know students that are very strong academically who got full financial aid. And if we're talking about financial aid, I actually wrote a book where it just gave all the information I have on financial aid, how to find the right university, how to pass examinations, how to reach out to university and inquire about financial aid. And I can go on about this like for a very long time, but yeah, there's a link below. I would suggest like just getting the book and reading everything. It's a pretty long book. One video will not be enough to explain everything. So if you're really interested in getting financial aid to study in the US, the link is below. The book would help you. 100% describes everything that I've gone through. If I did work and travel, would I have problems getting a visa? The answer in general, if you got accepted to a good university, you won't have trouble getting a visa, like 99%. If you got accepted to a weird university, the very cheap one, you don't have travel history, you've done work and travel, and you've done other stuff, yes, you might not get a visa. So in general, I would ask a visa specialist in your country to help you with that. But yeah, I would say that if you went on work and travel, came back home, had no problems, didn't break the rules when you were here, you won't have any problems with your visa. Is it hard to study in the US? Is it competitive? I think the US is one of the most competitive countries in the world. So yes, it's hard to study here and get ready to work hard. But my favorite saying is that if you make it here, you can make it anywhere. So if you made it in the United States, if you're a good student here, it's going to be very easy for you to get a job anywhere in the world. It's going to be easy for you to start a company here. So, you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your future success. When you're young, it's really worth a while to, spend time studying. And I don't regret those years when I just sat down, studied every single day, because it's paying off. It really helped. Can I work when I study? Yes, you can. On an F1 visa, on a student visa, you get 20 hours of work on campus. If your program suggests that you have an internship, you can apply for a CPT. That means you can work off campus as well. And when you graduate, you have this OPT, and OPT when you can work in the United States from 1 to 3 years after graduation, and this is full-time. Can I make savings during studies? Well, I know some people who made some savings. I was talking to the student and he was really into Bitcoin. I don't know how he's doing now, but he said he saved like $30,000 just because he was like buying Bitcoin. And yes, I know people who work in the evenings, who are doing some freelance jobs and stuff. But I would say you're coming to the US not to save money. You're coming here to invest in yourself, invest in your education. I wouldn't necessarily look at this experience as something when you're, building your savings. Yes, this is when you mostly spend your money. And when you work during your program, I would mostly use this money to make your life easier, to rent an apartment, to eat well, to invest in some social activities and trips, but not really to save money. What is better, academic success or publications? This is a really good question. I would say that numbers are really important. So when somebody looks at your resume, your portfolio, they would look at what you scored on TOEFL. They would look at your GMAT score. And I would really invest your time in making sure your GPA is high, your test scores are high. And then if you have some time left, then do your publications, do your conference talks. Yes, they add a lot, but first focus on your numbers. The next question is for me, if I want to go back home and if I miss my mom. Of course I miss my mom, of course I miss my grandparents and my father. But what I also realized, I go to St. Petersburg very often. What I realize when I'm there is that yes, I love this place, but I get bored really quickly. Like 2 weeks in St. Petersburg and I'm like, what should I do next? Because I don't know how to explain it. Like here in San Francisco, I'm like, oh my God, there are so many people who are so much more successful than I am, and I really need to work hard. I want to meet them. Today I was talking to Tim Draper's assistant about interviewing Tim Draper, who's a billionaire, and I realized this guy lives 20 minutes from here. I realized there's Instagram's office right here across the street. There's Airbnb down the road, and those guys started as a small startup, and now they're like a billion-dollar company, several billion-dollar company. This is what I like to be surrounded by, and I think so my home doesn't give me that, and I'm at this stage when I want to grow as a personality, grow as an entrepreneur, and I just want to stay here. And my mom comes to visit and I talk to her every day, but I think I'm better off being here right now. Maybe that would change, maybe I would move back someday, but for sure not this year and not the next year, but we'll see. We'll see how things go. I will update you on my progress, but again, I think you should invest your youth into being in a competitive environment, so then you can make your money or whatever and retire earlier. US or Canada? This is a great question. In terms of staying after studying, I would say Canada 100%, because you know what happens in Canada? You graduate from your program, you work for 1 year and you get this work permit. And after you work for 1 year, you can apply for a residency in Canada, which means that you're a resident straight away. You don't need an employer to sponsor a visa or stuff. What happens in the US is that you need to find an employer who's going to file for your visa. There's H-1B visa, which is competitive because there are only 65,000 visas a year and over 200,000 people apply. You can get married in the US and stay here. You can start your own startup and apply for an O-1 visa. And there are also other options, but you need to work for them. In Canada, you're like, if you want to stay after you're studying, you just stay there, which is amazing. But again, these are two different countries. Canada is more secure. Canada is more relaxed, more like Europe, I would say. There are not so many top universities in Canada. There is the University of Toronto, McGill University, the University of British Columbia, but America has Harvard, MIT and stuff. And headquarters of top companies are here in the US. Canada is, I would say in terms of like average salary would be lower level, but again, it depends on your character, it depends on your personality. If you prefer, the slower life, really safe, then it's Canada. If you prefer to hustle, if you prefer, growing like crazy, being really competitive, then it's the US. Which state is better for immigrants? Again, there is no, haven't experienced any hate towards immigrants. I know things happen. So my rule of thumb would be we have Republicans and we have Democrats here in the US. And Trump is a Republican and he is, against illegal immigration and stuff. So I would say Republican states would be more unfriendly towards immigrants, but if you're an American and watching, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, because I live in a Democratic state, I live in California, and I would say 50% of people here are immigrants, and we love immigrants, and I don't even, when I talk to a person, I'm not like if he's an immigrant or he's local, because there are not a lot of people who were born in San Francisco and who are still here. I would say like San Francisco are immigrants from other states, other countries and stuff. So if you're really worried, if this is your fear or phobia, just look at states that are democratic. Is it hard to get into the Ivy League? That's a great question. What you need to do, you need to find a university that you're interested in and Google this university plus acceptance rate. And you will see that on average for Ivy League universities, the acceptance rate is from 5 to maybe 10%, which means that out of 100 people who apply, 5 to 10 people get in. Yes, it's really competitive, but you're not just applying to one university, right? When you're applying to study in the US, I would say apply to 5, 6 universities, 2 competitive, 2 average, 2 safety options, and then you will get accepted. What should I do if I have a low GPA? Do I have chance of getting accepted? Yes, you do. Because there are so many universities that accept people with lower GPAs. And yes, they're not like top universities, because for some top universities, the minimum GPA would be 3.2 out of 4. But come on, there are lower ranking universities that you can apply for. Probably won't get financial aid because those universities don't really provide it. But yes, you have all the chances of studying in the US with a low GPA. Are there any scholarships for sportsmen? Yes, there are, but you need to make sure that you're an active sportsman, that you have your footage from your latest competitions, that you're winning prizes at competitions, that you can come here to the US and play for the team. And the process would look like this. You would need to find a trainer who's at the university, who's training a team, reach out to him, tell him how professional you are. He would want to see your professional sports resume. He would want to see footage from your games. And then he will be able to tell you whether he would like to have you on the team, and he would help you with getting a sports scholarship. This is again a lot of work. You would need to do your own research. You would need to reach out to those people. But yeah, I know a lot of students who came here on a sports scholarship. They did tennis, they did hockey, they did fencing, swimming. So those kinds of sports, yes, you have chances, but again, you have to be an active, good sportsman with proof that you won competitions. Residency for tuition purposes. This is a great question. For example, we take like a Californian university and we look at tuition fees for residents. For California residents, they would be like $10,000 to $12,000 a year. I'm just, taking averages. For out-of-state students, including international, they would be like $25,000 to $30,000. And some people were like on Instagram, can I buy a house in California and live there for 2 years and qualify for this lower tuition? Unfortunately, you have to be a resident in California, which means you pay taxes here, you live here, you work here, so probably have your green card, right? And you live here for, again, it depends on the state, but it's from 1 to 2 years. And if you're already here and you have that, then yes, you can qualify for tuition for residency purposes. But if you're a foreign student, if you're outside the US right now, I wouldn't even worry about that. I would focus more on getting financial aid or applying for scholarships instead of just, researching those residency for tuition purposes options. How much does health insurance cost? Okay, my health insurance is really expensive. It's around $600 a month, and I still have my copay when I go to see the doctor. But the thing is, healthcare in the US is really expensive, and if something bad happens, you can end up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is not the best thing to do. So insurance is a way to feel safer. For students, it depends on where you are, it depends on your university, but I would say it's from $40 to $100 a month. And the last but not the least, how do I stay in the US after I graduate? So we already talked about OPT. Depending on what you studied, you get from 1 to 3 years of OPT, which means you can stay in the US and work. If you did STEM subjects, then you're gonna stay in the US for 3 years and work. And if you did something that's not STEM, you're gonna stay for 1 year. And your task during those years is to find a company that sponsors work visas for foreign students, because some companies don't do that. And for example, you go to to some Google's department and ask them whether they sponsor a visa, and they would say, hey, no, unfortunately we don't do that. You need to work for our Irish office and then we're going to transfer you here, and this is how it works in the company. Maybe Facebook does that. So you really need to ask and make sure that you are interning at a company or working for a company that will be able to sponsor your visa later on. And this is a super important thing that you would need to do if you want to stay, because again, getting a work visa is a process. It's possible, and the most common way the students stay in the US is by getting the H-1B visa to work for a particular company. But yeah, as I mentioned, there are other options like getting married and starting a startup, and there's political asylum things. So there are many things, and you can talk to a lawyer. But my advice to you is, you know, do a lot of internships and do them in companies that sponsor visas, and always ask companies if they're gonna sponsor a visa for you. That was it from me for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video up to the very end. If you're not yet subscribed to this channel, red button below, and if you're not yet subscribed to my Instagram, it's Lingua Marina. I highly suggest that you take our TOEFL course, because again, TOEFL is the exam that you would need for any, you know, specialty, any level of education in the US. The link is below. Also, if you're looking for financial aid, the link to my book is below. Thank you so much for watching this again. I will see you soon in the next videos, and yeah, thank you. Bye.